This Jocks 94.5 podcast is brought to you by Millennium Satellite and Video. Log on to msbnow.com. TV excellence everywhere. That's Millennium. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning starts now.
All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Appreciate you guys tuning in. 800-239-9569 if you want to get in. 800-239-WJOX. You can also text in 205-834-9450. Which teams may be getting too much love heading into the season, not getting enough love heading into the season? We'll use sort of the coaches poll as our barometer as to who maybe needs more attention and who are wondering why people are so high on. Greg, I don't think there's any reason to wonder why people are high on Ohio State. Like you said, the rankings from a recruiting standpoint, you'll have multiple five-star players, a bushel of four-star players, some guys that have played. I'm not trying to say there's nobody that's played and nobody that has any ability. I mean, you watch Sonny Styles play linebacker, like, kid can play. You know it. It's there. Caleb Downs, you obviously know what he's capable of. Igbinosun, obviously, you have an idea what he's able to do. A lot of these guys are proven. It's just it felt like last year you went and you said, all right, here's solidified tackle, here's solidified center, here's solidified NFL running back in spots that you needed those bodies. And then they added maybe even just a little bit more than on the field presence with leadership and whatnot. I don't know if it's as wow-worthy what they did through the portal to replace some of that going into this year.
I mean, I think that part of the big question that I have with them is the production loss defensively. I think they're still going to be good at wide receiver. I think they're going to be elite at wide receiver. I think they have a chance to still be very good along the offensive line. I think with the guys that had to fill in last year in injury, I think the offensive line has very few questions going into the season. I have big questions at quarterback. I have big questions at running back, even though I like the addition, like you said, of C.J. Donaldson. I have questions to an extent at tight end, even though I think that Max Clare is going to be a really good addition for them. I love their linebackers. I think their safeties have a chance to be great. I think Igbinosun, who you referenced, who's back, guy had, I think, 15 penalties last year. I mean, that's a significant issue. Is their number one corner now is a guy that has traditionally been very, very prone to holding and pass interference penalties. So that's something worth acknowledging and worth noticing as well. But the upside is there. You cannot deny the upside that Ohio State will always have. And I still love their head coach, Ryan Day. But maybe the biggest holdup I have could be with what's going on at offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. Last year, you have a super tandem of Chip Kelly and Jim Knowles. And I think Matt Patricia's a really good coach, but I've never seen him coach defense. Have you? In college.
And I've heard a lot of Ohio State fans, Greg, throwing that around as an advantage. Like, you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know how he's going to look. You don't know what this is going to be. And I'm kind of like, yeah, but he also hadn't coached at this level. Doesn't know exactly what he's going to get from his guys. How much can they handle? How much can they adjust on the fly? Like, it's just not – these aren't 7-year NFL vets that you're coaching up here. It's a little different here at this level.
I think it's very, very different. And Matt Patricia – I don't know him that well, but I'm going to assume if he's of the Belichick tree, probably not. And look, I don't know him, but probably gonna be pretty obvious what he's gonna do. Like it's not like it's a big secret what Bill Belichick does. So I think being able to figure out how he attacks certain teams and certain opponents is fine, but there's also going to be a bit of a learning curve for him. What can I do to some of these other offenses that I'll be facing? Because in the Big Ten, you have a pretty decent variety of style of offense that you'll play, and I'll just be curious. I mean, it takes sometimes coaches a year to figure out who's doing what, and, hey, this is how this team attacks us, and sometimes there's a little bit of a learning curve there. Look at Colin Klein at Kansas State to A&M last year. Nobody denies that Colin Klein's a really good coach. It's universally accepted. But it took him a year to kind of figure out what he can and can't do in the SEC based on what the opponents have. And I think that's something worth noticing as well.
I don't think there's any doubts. All right, let's go around the SEC, get some updates from camps. We talked about in Knoxville having to replace some couple of starters on the offensive line, a couple of big ones at tackle. Freshman David Sanders on why he may be ready to step in there and take the right tackle spot for the Vols.
We got one of the best D-lines in the country year in and year out. So going against Dom, going against Bryson, going against Josh Joseph, Caleb Heron, David Hobbs, like those are some of the best guys in the whole entire SEC. So I go against them every single day, and they're going to get me better every single day. So going into Saturday, I know that I've been prepared with some of the best players, so I'll be able to be ready for whoever I have to go against.
6'6", 297, true freshman, Greg. It's you saw a lot of good freshman tackles come in at Alabama and get to go against great defensive linemen every day in practice. That doesn't just mean it's going to be okay in a game. It could still be a lot of headaches for a freshman at that position, regardless of who you're practicing against.
Yeah, I mean, I think that anytime you're getting prepared to play as a young player against top-level competition, the learning curve will not be quite as steep. Now, the biggest thing that I always have with offensive linemen, you can speak to this better than me, is that he's never seen the level of relentlessness that he's going to see down and down out in college football. And you cannot simulate that. You play a game in an all-star game, it's not the same. You play in a showcase, you rep out in a showcase, it's not the same.
What about helmetless pass rush, padless pass rush?
It depends on if you're getting bull rushed. You tell me. I mean, to me, I see a lot of offensive linemen getting posterized on these bull rush drills, which not really the best indicator of future success. But help me understand this. Like, I would think playing against the offensive lineman or the defensive lineman that he played against last year, how big were they on average? 230?
I think he played at IMG, so he probably saw some guys that were a little bigger. So
yeah, he probably saw some really good guys in practice, and I'm sure he's very well prepared, as prepared as most, to go in and play at a high level as a freshman. But it's still different. And you're playing now against guys that are 22, 23 years old, as opposed to playing against guys that were 16, 17. It's just different, and it's harder. And that's a real question mark for me with Tennessee is their offensive line, and I think it should be.
I don't think there's any doubt. I will say we may be doing a little bit of a disservice with Sam Pendleton and Wendell Moe. I like Wendell Moe a lot. Now, I don't think he is a first-round mock NFL guard from that perspective. I like the way he plays. Big, wide body he plays hard. He's got good, strong hands. But, I mean, I don't think he's an elite NFL prospect, but I think he could be good for what Tennessee wants him to do. And obviously, you and I have seen Sam Pendleton operate at Notre Dame. We know what he's capable of. I think he brings the attitude, the demeanor that you want. So those two could at least offset it a little bit. But still, the tackles were pretty good last year for a lot of the year. And true freshman in there could be a big problem, specifically with a quarterback that is just not the high-level guy that you thought Nico Iamaleava was going to be. And how does he handle either different pressure or different busts that an offensive lineman of that age is going to make? I don't know, but it's just a position that still you have to be concerned about. But maybe the two coming in are going to be able to offset a true freshman starting at one of those spots.
Yeah, and I think I really like Pendleton too. He gave Notre Dame really good reps down the stretch too. So he's got some high-level experience in college football and has played against some of the best teams and the best players that college football has to offer. So I think that's really helpful to have a guy that's made a championship run and to kind of break him in alongside guy that is trying to cut his teeth a bit. So I think that's a really good place to start is some of the additions that you made. I think it's a good observation because I don't think enough people I know I probably haven't paid enough attention to some of the additions that Tennessee made. But that right tackle spot is a position that I'll be watching very closely. I just think about what Caden Proctor was when he arrived. And who knows if he's the same, but he was the 5-star all-world player as well. And he had some challenges and there was a bit of a learning curve as a freshman. And there were some ups and downs as a freshman, which guess what is totally normal and to be expected, frankly.
Yep.
So it's just something worth monitoring, and not saying that that's going to lose them games necessarily, but it's something that could become problematic as the season goes along if a guy shows a couple weaknesses early.
All right. That's a little bit on Tennessee. Let's head over to Fayetteville, where another position group in the Southeastern Conference that we just don't really know enough about, that is bringing up a lot of questions as to what they could be this year, is the Arkansas Razorbacks wide receiver core. Raylan Sharp kind of discussing what the Razorbacks have sort of been throughout the course of this camp so far.
I think the big thing for me is just the IQ level. Not just using talent, but using my intelligence as well. So I think that's the biggest thing for me, is just, studying the game, knowing what I'm going against, knowing tendencies, things like that. So I think that'll be the biggest thing for me.
Where are you on this Arkansas receiver core, Greg? Because we talked yesterday about how the Arkansas strength coach answered some questions at practice over the weekend, and he referenced Taylor Green being a little bit more dinged up than a lot of people realized last season. If that's the case, and he can make an even further jump, maybe than some of us believe that he can, it might be time for a special season in Arkansas, at least on offense. But the receiver core is one that I just don't feel like we know enough about. Really, just the weaponry in general, we don't know enough about.
Nobody, with what was lost. But think about what they also found a little bit in, I don't know, I don't want to call them diamonds in the rough, but there were a lot of diamonds in the rough that have played for them the last couple of years, whether it was Satanga or Tesla or whatever. They had weapons the last couple of years, and we did not spend a ton of time talking about, oh, look at their weapons. You know what I mean? So maybe this staff and Bobby Petrino has found something in Omega Blake, who's played a lot of football. Maybe Raylan Sharp or Cisse or some of these young guys that they have coming up as well. Maybe they're prepared to take on a pretty decent sized role. But if you look at their weapons, of their top 10 receivers, they have 7 new guys. 7 of the top 10 are new. So it doesn't mean you can't go and get it done. That doesn't include tight end, by the way, where 2 of their top 3 are new. So it's just a complete overhaul. So they might be really good. They might not be really good. There's really no way of knowing at the moment.
Like you said, the leading returning receiver for the Arkansas Razorbacks is Jordan Anthony, 8 catches, 111 yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, that just doesn't feel real in the Southeastern Conference. I know it's a position we've put a premium on. I know it's a position that can command a lot of money at different places, but to have that many guys gone from your roster, and it's not all portal, obviously some via graduation, some going off to the NFL, but man, I mean, what does that do to a quarterback as far as trying to take that step, G-Mac, when maybe you're having to baby some of your wide receivers, or maybe some of the, that nonverbal communication where you can go over there and just give your guy a look, or you have an idea, hey, good and well we get this coverage against this, or that corner's playing you that way against this route, break it off a little bit early, or go ahead and get vertical and I'm going to hit you down the seam. Like how different is that for a quarterback who, like Taylor Green, has a chance to take a big step, but doesn't have all that continuity with that group that he would probably like to have?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be overcome if you look at Taylor Green's skill set. Like, he's not going to be a guy that you want dropping back 30 times in a game. Like, you're going to want him to be on the move. You're going to want to marry up stretch zone with his athleticism and the threat of him pulling out the backside for a bootleg. Like, I think it's fine given the route concepts they're probably going to emphasize. But if they're all of a sudden going to start going down a direction of feel routes and chemistry routes and timing routes and stuff like that, then that would be a pretty big 180 for where I think they're going to go. But if that's where they end up, then that requires a lot of time. But I don't think that's how they're going to attack it, at least early in the season.
Well, I wouldn't anticipate either. That's how that's going to go. Alabama A&M, Arkansas State, and then at Ole Miss for the Razorbacks. They'll be at Memphis the next week, and then they get Notre Dame at home. What do you anticipate the Razorbacks be when they get Notre Dame at home after those first 4 games? Alabama A&M, Arkansas State in Little Rock, at Ole Miss, and at Memphis.
Well, the Ole Miss game, obviously very difficult. The Memphis game should be challenging as well. But you tell me right now, you think Arkansas is going to get somebody this year?
Absolutely.
I would bet a ton of money on them getting somebody. I don't know who that is. Maybe that's somebody, a team that plays a lot of man coverage in Notre Dame. Maybe it's them. Because Taylor Green, you want to play a lot of man coverage? Cool. I'll just go.
Sure.
I'll take off, and I'm going to cause a lot of problems for you. So I think the matchup with Notre Dame with his skill set at quarterback is actually quite good because you can't play man against him because he could run 70 yards out the gate for a touchdown. You're going to have to play some zone, which is good. Maybe Taylor Green will evolve in that area because that was not something he did great last year is kind of recognizing and diagnosing and carving up zone defense. But if that's, I'm sure, been a huge part of his offseason development, if that's been growth and if they've had growth there, then that will be very interesting. But if Notre Dame comes in playing what they play defensively, that's going to be a tough matchup for him. It really is.
Absolutely. All right, so a little bit of a look around the Southeastern Conference. We're going to talk Missouri with Jarod Hamilton after our next break and try to get some clarification as to what's happening with that quarterback situation in Como. They scrimmaged yesterday. Don't know if a ton of information is going to come out about that one just yet, but any direction that you're sort of leaning with this quarterback battle right now in Columbia, GMAC?
I still think it's going to be Prebula. His mobility and athleticism makes it very interesting. I'm not saying Sam Horn can't throw it. We know that. I know he's got a little athleticism as well. But I still think it's going to be Prebula. And it's partly because I saw Prebula do some nice things last year at Penn State. Like, they missed him when he wasn't there. Like, his ability to use quarterback run. But I also think with Prebula, if you feel that confident in your backup, then you are free to do a lot offensively that would potentially expose Prebula to some contact. If you can do quarterback power, you can do quarterback sweep, you can do some things like that. If you feel that confident in your number two guy, that if Prebula has to miss some time, backup can go right in, not skip a beat. That really opens your offense up quite a bit. So that's where I lean. Are you leaning towards Prebula right now or no?
I don't know how you couldn't, just to be honest with you. I don't know how you couldn't look at it and say, with the dual threat aspect that he's going to add, maybe he doesn't have the experience in the system like Sam Horn does, but Sam Horn's been dinged up, banged up. It's not like he has a lot of game reps in the system, so I don't know if I value that quite as much. But yeah, I think it's got to be Bo Prebula. I think you brought him in for that reason because of physically what he's going to give you and some of the things that he does well, how they're going to fit into that offense. But it is a nice luxury that we haven't mentioned to have a guy that's been there with you, that knows the verbiage, knows the scheme, is very comfortable in what you're going to call and what Kirby Moore's going to want him to do right there in Sam Horn. So maybe the value is not just that Sam Horn's pushing, but just if they needed him for a week or two, kind of like what Missouri needed last year when Brady Cook got dinged up and we thought Drew Pine was going to just be able to kind of steer the ship for them when that took place. That didn't really happen. I mean, that ship hit an iceberg quick when he came in the game. It wasn't what any of us thought it was going to be. Not that we thought it was going to be elite, but man, I thought he'd be able to hold it together, and it just didn't look good. I mean, it was rough when he came in. So maybe there's the value of Sam Horn there is that, all right, now we can run Prebula a little bit more. We know we got a guy that can come in and at least keep us on even keeled and go out there and help us win a few football games. So that's probably the value more so of Sam Horn than I think it is he potentially going to be the starter?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really a big part of the question too, and it's a little bit like how good are they going to be along the offensive line? Like, I think it'll be Prebula, but if the offensive line's really good and they're good in pass pro, and you want maybe to lean more towards a drop back style, and you use your mobile quarterback and Prebula as your change of pace guy, then I can see it going their direction. But I still think this can be a group that really lives kind of stretching the field horizontally in the run game and marrying up with an athletic quarterback. I think that's when they go at their best. And look, Brady Cook was not that guy. Like, he had a little bit, but that's not really who he was. So I think it'll be interesting to see, do they want to revert back more to a slightly more athletic option at quarterback or a little bit more drop back? That's always going to be a huge question for me.
I don't think there's any doubt. All right, we'll ask Jarod Hamilton about it. He covers the Missouri Tigers. We'll do that as we continue rolling around SEC camps next right here on Jocks.
Go inside Jocks 94.5 on Jocks TV. Morning Jocks, Mac and Cube, and three-man front video simulcasts are presented by Bill Smith Buick GMC and Game Day Men's Health. Watch on the Jocks mobile app and YouTube by searching Jocks 94.5 TV.
Welcome back in. McElroy Cubelic in the morning, 8:23 right here on Jocks. Talking SEC football, kind of kicking around the league. We'll do it in the 8 o'clock hour every day leading up to kickoff. And we'll continue that discussion that we were just having on Missouri a few moments ago and kind of where that quarterback situation is, maybe where the offense is right now. Jarod Hamilton covers the Missouri Tigers for Power Mizzou and USA Today, amongst others. Jarod, what are the early comments? What are the early thoughts, feels for maybe where this quarterback situation is for the Missouri Tigers right now?
Right now, based off the first week of camp, it's still kind of around that 50-50 split. Coach Drink was talking about during his media day last week before camp. We've seen, Bo and Sam each rep with starting center Connor Tolson as far as, taking some snaps during drills and things like that. We'll really get to know a little bit more in the next few days. They just had their first scrimmage last night. So that's kind of the thing. Drink has, of course, been hush on it, and I think it's still very early. I think he's still trying to figure it out. I think he said this is his fourth quarterback battle in the 6 seasons he's been here. And so he said, I remember him comparing it to his first one back in 2020 with Connor Bazelak and Sean Robinson and things like that, because the ones with Brady Cook in 2022 and 23, while they were competitions, everybody kind of knew Brady Cook had the upper hand going into both of them. And then so this feels like it's a real one where he's trying to figure it out. And these are also 2 quarterbacks who are relatively inexperienced. So it's kind of a lot of new stuff going on. And I think he's still trying to figure out, which way he's leaning.
Looking at where this offense could go from just a philosophy standpoint, how much does it change from Pribula to Sam Horn? I mean, we know Pribula's super mobile. We know he's athletic. What does Sam Horn's skill set look like, and how would the offense potentially change if he were to win the job?
I think the offense it's kind of hard with Sam because we've only literally seen him throw maybe, 6 passes in his career, and we haven't seen him play much. But if we're just talking stylistically from, when Brady Cook was here, they like having a quarterback that can scramble, or they can, do those QB draws, or maybe some type of options. They like that. They think both quarterbacks can do that. I will say with Bo, compared to Brady, Bo is more of he's an actual runner. I feel like myself, as well as some other guys who cover Missouri, we kind of agree that Brady Cook was a really good scrambler. Sometimes when they designed runs, it wasn't the greatest success, unless it was like a short yardage type of thing. And so with Bo, I think they can really do some really good stuff as far as those QB designed runs for him, and I think it'll be a little bit better. Sam is athletic as all get out. We know he just got drafted by the Dodgers. We know he has an arm on him. That's going to be the interesting thing. I think they both fit kind of the mold Eli Drinkwitz is looking for, but if I was just to go off of who's probably the best specifically for what Drink wants to do, I think Bo, because he's actually a runner. And with Sam, we know he's athletic, but we don't really know if he's a runner or a scrambler because we just haven't seen him.
Jarod Hamilton joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline talking Mizzou. How do you feel like about how the other new pieces are fitting in on offense? Kevin Coleman at receiver. We love Ahmad Hardy at running back coming in. Dominic Guidice coming in at offensive line from Michigan. Are these guys coming in and just taking positions? What's the thought, the feel on some of these newcomers on that side of the ball early?
So Kevin Coleman, it's crazy to say it's an underrated addition, but just because of all the players they got, the 21, 22 transfers they got, I mean, they got a lot of good pieces, so it's hard to pinpoint everyone, but they love Kevin Coleman. I remember in the spring they were saying he's everything you want to be in the slot, and what better person to kind of fill in for Luther Burden in the slot than someone who, in a lot of ways, is kind of like a one-to-one comparison. We're talking about someone who had 74 receptions, 932 yards, 6 touchdowns. He was third team All-SEC at Mississippi State, and Luther was first team All-SEC, but Luther had maybe 12 or 13 catches less, a couple hundred yards fewer. They had the same touchdown. So from a statistical standpoint, Kevin can do that. And then there's a lot of parallels. They both play the slot. They're around the same height. Both wear number 3. They're both from St. Louis. There's a lot of things they can do there, but they love Kevin Coleman. They love the leadership he brings to the receiver room. Ahmad Hardy, I think he was 12th in the country in rushing last year, Sun Belt Freshman Player of the Year. They've got big hopes for him. I think he's going to have that kind of bell cow back type of role, especially down the line in the season. They like their stable of running backs, but to see this kind of being If they wanted to go maybe the Cody Schrader route from a couple years ago, where the first 4 or 5 games, they're not necessarily a running back by committee, but you can see the other running backs getting involved, and then that you get in that second half of the season, and you really need some help, or you really want to, lean on that run game, especially with a young quarterback, whoever it is. You can go to Amaya Hardy. Interesting thing on Dom. Dom was one of the spring camp darlings. Every time we talk to Coach Drink, offensive line coach Brandon Jones, OC Kirby Moore, they all had good things to say about him. His fellow offensive linemen had good things to say about him. He was filling in at center while Connor Tollison was still coming back from that torn ACL, and so he was doing first-team center for about, I think they said 11 or 12 of the 14 spring practices. They really liked what he was doing. Since then, for fall camp, he's moved over to right guard. I asked him just a couple of days ago, would you basically like to call Dom the starting right guard? And he said no, but he's doing a good job there. Something I noticed at practice a couple of days ago was Connor. He wasn't at practice. We believe it's a rest day because Drink kind of joked that he's old and stuff like that. And, of course, he's coming off that ACL, and he's kind of on the earlier side of that return. We know that's usually maybe a 9 to 12-month injury or recovery. He's around the 9-month mark. So I can see why they're giving him a rest day. But they had Dom practicing with the quarterbacks again, snapping to Bo and Sam and stuff like that. And he doesn't typically practice with the centers anymore. He's always with the guards and stuff. So I think now it's kind of like a preview of if Connor can't go for whatever reason, they would have Dom go to center, and then they'll have one of these. They like their depth on the offensive line. They have Jalen Early, who they just got in the spring portal from Florida State. They got Logan Reichert, who's like the biggest player on the team, 6'6", 350. Then you got Tristan Wilson, who is another guy they've been kind of impressed with. So one of those guys would slide in guard, and Dom would probably slide to center in that instance.
How about the defense? I feel like across the board, the defense should be pretty good. I'm not really that concerned about that group, but what have you seen so far from the defense to make you feel real confident?
I like the depth they got across the board this offseason. I think every time we talk to Drink, I joke that he starts blushing when he starts talking about the edge. Ask him any question about edge, and he's going to light up. And during the offseason, there's some coach speak, and there's some, boosting every position. And then you can genuinely, tell if somebody's excited about something. And every time you talk about edge and every time you talk about linebacker, Drink genuinely gets excited with the depth of, those positions. Damon Wilson, Nate Johnson, Darius Smith, who was like the fall camp star last year, tore his ACL a couple weeks before the season. They're really excited to get him back. He's even happy with the 4-star freshman, Javion Hilson, Dayton Hopkins. He's really happy about that. Linebackers, they got Josiah Trotter, reigning Big 12 defensive freshman of the year. They got Tristan Newsom, who got a blanket waiver to come back for another season. And then they got a lot of young linebackers who actually played, 10, 11 games last year, whether it was special teams or some spot snaps on defense that they like. On the third level, safety, they brought in 3 safeties, Jalen Catalon, Mose Phillips, Santana Banner. I can see roles for all of them. Catalon, he'll be that starting free safety on the back end, 5 interceptions, third-team All-American. Mose Phillips, I think he's like a Swiss Army knife. Any of the 3 safety spots, whether it's the star, that free safety, that strong safety, they can put him anywhere. And then Santana Banner, another good coverage guy. He's a huge safety. He's like 6'3". I can see him getting some snaps if, current starting safety, Marvin Burks, he kind of struggled in coverage last year. If there's not an uptake in that, or he's not doing necessarily what they want, I can see someone like Santana Banner getting those snaps and providing some help in the coverage, type of side of things. Cornerback, that's really their only question. They only brought in Stephen Hall from Washington State. They like that they're bringing 100% of their snaps back at that position with Dre Norwood, Toriano Pride, Nick DeLoach. They add Stephen Hall, and so it's usually a 3-man cornerback rotation. It's possible. Talked to cornerback coach Al Pogue. He said it's possible that they can go to 4. They like what they got there, but they're still trying to figure out who's going to be that CB2 opposite of Norwood.
What are you hearing about Jalen Catalon's health and just where he is? I mean, the kid's played some great football, but it was a long time ago, and he's been dinged up often. Where is he health-wise?
Jalen is good. Like Connor, he had missed a practice on Saturday, and I'm pretty sure Drink called him old too. Called it a rest day. He was back at practice on Sunday, so he's good. they love a lot about him. They love his leadership. They love that he's a heavy hitter. They love that he's another ball hawk in that secondary along Dalen Carnell. So Jalen Catalon, from what I know, what they said, he's fine.
We appreciate the time today, Jarod. Great stuff catching us up on Mizzou. I know you'll have more information on yesterday's scrimmage later today, so we'll direct everybody to your website and where everybody can get your work there. But thanks for hopping on with us today.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
All right. Jarod Hamilton, he covers the Missouri Tigers, and not a ton of clarification there, Greg, on what the quarterback situation is. I mean, he almost feels like he's keeping Sam Horn in it too, a little bit more than we were. So just interesting to think that this might be one that everybody just handed to Bo Perbula. Maybe the race does go up to close to the season, or maybe into the season for Eli Drinkwitz.
Well, if you listen to Drink, like, he's absolutely on board with keeping this thing alive, and which I think is a perfectly fine way of approaching it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. I think it's fantastic to have depth and competition at the position, especially when you feel like you have two pretty good options. I think Perbula is going to be a good player. I don't know as much about Sam Horn. So the fact that Sam Horn is making it interesting has to give Drink a lot of excitement about what could be at that position this year, a year when you maybe need to take a step as a program, maybe a year when you can really contend in a lot of games given how your schedule lays out. Maybe this is the year, because of the quarterback play, they can elevate a little bit.
Yeah, it could be. But I think there are a lot of pieces to like on this team, a lot of things to like about where Missouri is right now. And I think a lot of those assets being slept on for Eli Drinkwitz's team. We'll have more time to talk about those, more time to continue going around the Southeastern Conference. We'll do that, get to Auburn, Alabama next right here on Jocks.
The capital of the sports talk nation. This is Jocks 94.5 and JocksFM.com. Birmingham.
Carolina head coach Shane Beamer, another maybe lost aspect of a team that at SEC Media Days or this entire offseason we haven't spent a lot of time discussing, but this is Gamecocks head coach Shane Beamer on his new offensive coordinator.
That was one thing that attracted me to Mike when we brought him into our program, was his experience with those guys and looking at his background. And most recently, he worked with a big athletic quarterback in Cam Newton. He's been around a big athletic quarterback in Daniel Jones. He was around a big athletic quarterback in Josh Allen, and how those teams that he was a part of utilized those guys. That was appealing a couple of years ago, and it still is now. I mean, he's not sitting here saying that they're cutting their cookie cutter the same quarterback, because they're not. But some of the things, whether it be personality wise, schematically, that you can draw comparisons to, and for him to be able to say, we did this with Cam when he was with the Panthers, and maybe we could do something similar with LaNorris and things like that. I think that's good. I think it's good for LaNorris. Just, Mike was around a lot of those guys at different stages in their career, either rookies or young or older down the road, whatever it might be. So there's a lot of experience that Coach Shula has, and that's beneficial for all of us.
All right, so we all think LaNorris Sellers has a chance to have a big year. We all like the capabilities that are there. We saw him take over multiple games last year. Huge down the stretch for South Carolina. We do have some questions about the cast, GMAC, but haven't spent a ton of time on Mike Shula taking over. We both love Arkans, moves on to be the head coach at App State. But what should we expect to maybe be different, or should we expect things to be better? What things should we be concerned about with that switch heading into this season?
I think offensively it can be really good. I mean, I think the receivers will hopefully grow this year. I think Mike Shula does a really good job with quarterback development. I know that people in this part of the world will look back at his time as a head coach and say, yeah, he left a little to be desired. I don't think that's entirely fair, because he's not being asked right now to lead an SEC program. He's being asked to call plays and develop a young quarterback, which he has pretty dang good experience doing. I think he's in a really good spot. And with his time in the NFL, his time around Cam Newton, his time actually developing a rapport last year with LaNorris Sellers as an offensive assistant, all those things point to this offense really taking some strides and LaNorris being a better player this year and more confident player this year. So I'm really optimistic about that side of the ball. It's the defensive side for South Carolina that has me a little concerned.
No, defense obviously has some issues there too, but that defensive coordinator Clayton White's going to be back. I think there's some other pieces going to be back there. But do you expect the offense to look much different? Do you expect formationally it to be different? Maybe pace, tempo, different style quarterback runs? I mean, I thought that was one thing that Dow did a great job of, was sort of mixing up how they offered different Q runs over the course of the last few years, and weren't going to do it near as much with Spencer Rattler, but obviously had a couple in there to just keep people off balance. Formationally, thought he did some nice things to sort of get mismatches and keep defenses on their heels. But just as far as how it looks, because he was there last year, should we expect it to be very close and maybe it be less of a concern?
I mean, you would hope, but I also, at the same time, I think that they're just going to be a different style team. I mean, you're not going to have a hammerback and Rocket Sanders. You're not going to want your quarterback to be exposed to potential injury by running him like crazy. You're going to have hopefully better wide receiver play. You're not going to have the tight end that you utilized last year in success. So I just think their personnel is so different. It's hard to really cross over from last year to this year. It's just, I think they're going to approach. Now the quarterback's going to be the same naturally, but I don't know if they're going to want to put him in harm's way, knowing how much their success this year will depend on him being available. And remember last year when he got a little banged up, it did not do them any benefits. So I don't know if you see it that way, but I think that this offense is going to look very different than last year. It's going to be a little more athletic as an offense, and that should be beneficial, but it also could lead to some challenges as well.
No, I think that just sort of the flow, the feel, the rhythm, and I understand you give it a little bit of a pass, a little bit of a break because Shula was there a season ago, and you just anticipate LaNorris Sellers make a step. I mean, he's going to grow as a quarterback, as a college football player, as a person. So that's also going to be something that's going to take place. But, I mean, you know like I do, you change coaches, it's just different. And sometimes that understanding, I mean, it might be where Shula talks to him more in the headphones, more in the helmet before the play starts, and he doesn't like that. And that can become annoying, and that can make him think too much. And all of a sudden, just things like that being different, that can offer up for a different player, for a different result in what actually takes place. So just kind of another thing that I just felt like we weren't spending any time on and hadn't talked about as far as maybe what South Carolina may end up being or how things might be different and hell, may even be better. And that defense, I still keep kind of going back to just the guys that have been there. And you look at on that side of the football, I know Brian Thomas physically is not going to be somebody that's going to scare a lot of folks when he's on the field, but he's been in that system, been in that scheme. They'll be able to utilize him off the edge. Monkel Goodwine's also been there inside. And even, too, when you look at bringing back Nick Barrett from injury last year, he's been there. And he's been a guy that's played there, understands it. And then you go get, some players through the portal that maybe like a Tony Pikes, Sean Murphy at linebacker is going to probably be an upgrade in athleticism. Now, does that mean he's as good of a linebacker as Demetrius Knight was? I doubt it. But DQ Smith, Judge Collier, Jalen Kilgore, those guys have all played in that secondary. So I think South Carolina probably is a little more on defense than people want to give them credit for. It's just, are they going to have guys that can take over games like Kyle Kennard did on a very regular basis?
I think they'll be fine on defense. I just don't know if they'll be a top 5 defense or top 10 defense. Where'd they finish up last year? I mean, I don't know if that's exactly where they ended up, but this was a group that allowed very few teams to just run it up and down the field on them. I know Ole Miss had their number. There are a couple other games where maybe they didn't have their best stuff, but this defense was a handful last year. So if they slip from, say, 10th to 28th, that's a pretty noticeable drop. I love Clayton White. I think he's fantastic. I think they're going to be really well coached, and I like some of their personnel. There's just a lot of new, especially when you take into account the veteran presence that was there last year.
12th in scoring defense, 16th in total defense for South Carolina last year. So, and there you go. I mean, I think where maybe the even better barometer would be is, inside the Southeastern Conference where they were 4th in scoring defense. And in total, 4th in total defense, and in scoring defense, South Carolina came in 5th in the Southeastern Conference. So just Ole Miss, Texas, Tennessee, Alabama were finished ahead. By the way, I don't think we've really mentioned that Ole Miss finished number 1 scoring defense in the SEC last year. I mean, 21 touchdowns they allowed all year. All year. Next closest was Texas in the Southeastern Conference with 27. That's
not bad.
Pretty insane. But that goes further too, Greg. When, by the way, they allowed the fewest touchdowns in college football last year. Number one in the nation in fewest touchdowns allowed. But that goes further to what you've said about that group going into this year, that, hey, Austin Simmons might be fine. I added, when was the last time we worried about quarterbacks with Lane? Doesn't happen often. But on the flip side of that, it's not just that D-line. Trey Amos and company, you got some new characters back there. It's going to be hard for that group to stay even close to where they were a season ago.
And it's not a reflection of the coaching. It's not a reflection of this upcoming group of players. It's more of a tip of the cap to what was there. And I think some people kind of lose sight of that. It's like, I have so much respect for what was there that I think it's going to be almost impossible to replicate those same results. You know what I mean? So I think that's where people, it's like, oh, why do you think these guys can play? I never said that. I just said that last year's guys were so exceptionally good that it's hard for anybody to sustain that level of play. It doesn't matter how good they are. They could have, all SEC performers and not be as good as some of their personnel from last year. That just goes to show you how deep and how quality that group was from top to bottom.
I don't think there's any doubt. You look at the offenses that Ole Miss is going to be playing: Georgia State, at Kentucky, then Arkansas, Tulane, LSU would be September the 27th, Washington State, at Georgia, at Oklahoma, South Carolina, Citadel, Florida, at Mississippi State. I mean, there are some offenses in there, Greg, that we think are going to be good. LSU, Aaron Anderson already battling some injuries in camp, missing some time. We think Georgia's going to be good, but still, new quarterback. Don't know exactly how that thing's going to go. Oklahoma has the pieces, but a lot of that's got to fit together and work. We just mentioned the concerns with LaNorris Sellers in South Carolina. It looks like there's a lot of good offenses on here, but there are also some offenses that we think are going to be good that they don't work out this upcoming season.
Could, and there's plenty of question marks on other teams' offenses, like you said. I mean, just like we have questions about South Carolina's defense, I have questions about several teams that they'll be playing against who will, in all likelihood, not be as good as they were a year ago at certain positions. Ole Miss being maybe the best example. They'll go to Oxford. So there's a handful of games like that, and you can kind of do it all throughout all these schedules. This position group's up, this position group's down. It's not new, it's not different. It's the way it is every year, but now it's even more significant because of the portal and because of the new faces that you might have playing significant roles.
Absolutely. Okay, so when we come back, we'll finish up this hour with more talk around SEC camps next on Mac and Cube in the morning.
Go inside Jocks 94.5 on Jocks TV. Morning Jocks, Mac and Cube, three-man front video simulcasts are presented by Bill Smith Buick GMC and Game Day Men's Health. Watch on the Jocks mobile app and YouTube by searching Jocks 94.5 TV.
All right, welcome back in. McElroy Cubelic in the morning. G-Mac and I are going to hop off after this next break. We've got our college football seminar today for ESPN. The boys going to take you through SEC camps, continue rolling. I did see a quote from transfer right tackle Mason Murphy, G-Mac, down at Auburn. Said he loves how the offensive line is starting to come together. Quote, "We've got some grit to us in this O-line room. Starting five we have right now, I think we're some dogs."
Was that any indicator for you?
No, but
Top 10 O-line now? Top 5?
I like the fact that they're not afraid to come out and have the understanding that they need to be good, and that they're going to go out there and say, hey, listen, if we don't get it done, this team probably doesn't get it done. So I don't mind putting a little extra pressure on yourself, and maybe a little bit of that's confidence. We know some of this that comes out of camp, and some of the quotes are false confidence, but I'd rather at least believe that they have some than not hear anything from them. And I've told you, this is what I need to know most more than anything else out of this team coming out of camp. I get the quarterback stuff. I got it. I think that's a massive work in progress. I think the offensive line could go further earlier for this team than any other position because they can lean on that group early. We know early in the season everybody's going to screw up. No team's going to be clean. No team's going to be perfect. No team's not going to make mistakes. You're going to have penalties. You're going to have turnovers. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have busted coverages. It's going to happen. You're going to turn guys loose on pressures. But if you can tell me my offensive line is going to be solid against a couple good opponents early, I think that might be able to help you more than anything else.
Totally agree. And I think that if you can just be sound and not get beat early along the lines of scrimmage, that's a great starting point. A great starting point. So I think that is probably, outside of quarterback, the most important position to play well against Baylor. Because Baylor's going to have a couple things for you. Dave Aranda's going to have a few tricks up his sleeve. When I say a couple, I mean like 72 different things that he could have, that he's been studying and thinking about all off season, and is drawn on paper and on whiteboards and on mirrors and you name it. I'm sure it's going to be an interesting first game. And if you can just lean on the offensive line and kind of calm down what he might try to attack you with, that's a really good starting point.
I don't think there's any doubt. And I just look at it from the perspective of, okay, let's say any team out there early in the season, it's all new, it's all different. And we talk about some of these bigger games, LSU, Clemson. We talk about Ohio State, Texas. We talk about Oklahoma, Michigan. You'll have younger quarterbacks, but you'll also have transfers in. You'll also have freshmen that are going to be playing, new guys, new spaces, hadn't spent a ton of time together. I mean, I'm almost to the point in some of these massive games early, Greg, whoever can just play the cleanest football, not be the most dynamic, not be the most overpowering, but just you don't give people first down conversions on penalties, or you don't give people second opportunities at explosive plays because of penalties, things like that. Don't bust coverages. Don't turn guys loose in blitz pickup. Those are the teams that are going to get some bigger wins early in the season, in my opinion.
And how about don't make dumb decisions in special teams? Don't drop punts. Don't misplay kickoff returns. When you try to take it out from 8 yards deep, now you get tackled at the 12 and you've given them 2 first downs based on field position. Just little things like that really contribute early to wins and losses.
Absolutely. All right, thanks for hanging in. G-Mac and I hopping off. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. right here on Jocks to keep all the college football conversation happening.
This is McElroy and Cubelic in the morning.